My name is Lydia. I am 58 years old. I have lived long enough to think nothing could surprise me anymore. I raised a son. I buried a husband. I built a life with my own two hands. But when my daughter-in-law stood up in the middle of our Thanksgiving dinner and called me a leech in front of everyone, I did something no one expected. I laughed. I laughed so hard my sides hurt, because she had no idea who I really was. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever been underestimated by someone who later regretted it. Trust me, you will want to hear this one. I live in a 2-story wooden house built back in 1952. It sits on a quiet road in rural Vermont, surrounded by maple trees that turn gold and red every fall. The paint on the shutters is peeling a little. The porch creaks when you step on the third board from the left. My late husband Thomas used to say he would fix it one day, but he never did. Now I keep it that way on purpose. It reminds me of him. From the outside, my life looks simple. I drive a 2008 Ford pickup truck with a dent on the passenger side door. I wear jeans and flannel shirts most days. I grow tomatoes and zucchini in my backyard garden. My neighbors think I am just another retiree living off a modest pension and Social Security checks. They wave when they see me. They bring me casseroles when the weather turns cold. They have no idea. Thomas passed away 8 years ago. Cancer took him slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but a quiet room and an empty chair. We had been married for 32 years. He was my best friend, my partner, my everything. When he died, I thought my life was over too, but I had to keep going. I had a son to think about, and I had a business to run. 25 years ago, I opened a small bakery in downtown Burlington. It was nothing fancy at first, just a tiny shop with 4 tables and a display case full of pies and cookies. I used my mother-in-law's recipes, the same ones she had passed down to Thomas before we got married. Apple pie with a lattice crust, cinnamon rolls that melted in your mouth, chocolate chip cookies with just the right amount of salt. People loved them. Thomas believed in me from the very beginning. He took out a loan to help me get started. He painted the walls himself. He built the shelves with his own hands. And when the first customers came through the door, he stood behind the counter with me wearing an apron that was too small for his broad shoulders, grinning like a fool. The bakery grew. 1 shop became 2. 2 became 4. By the time Thomas got sick, we had 8 locations across Vermont and New Hampshire. After he passed, I threw myself into the business even harder. It was the only way I knew how to grieve. Now I own 12 bakeries under the name Golden Harvest. Our annual revenue is over $3 million. My total net worth, including real estate investments and cash, is approximately $5 million. But almost no one knows this. I hired a woman named Grace to manage the day-to-day operations. She handles the staff, the suppliers, the marketing, everything. My name does not appear on the website or the business cards. The only people who know I am the owner are Grace, my lawyer Samuel, and my older brother Walter, who lives in Boston. Why do I keep it a secret? Because I wanted to know who loved me, for me, not for my money, not for what I could give them. I wanted to see people's true faces unfiltered by dollar signs. And over the years, I have learned that people show you exactly who they are when they think you have nothing to offer. My son Marcus was born when I was 24 years old. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny, red-faced baby with his father's nose and my stubborn chin. I swore I would give him everything, every ounce of love I had, every opportunity I could afford. But I also swore I would teach him the value of hard work, the importance of earning what you have. So I never told him about the money. As far as Marcus knows, I am a retired bakery worker who lives off savings and a small pension. He thinks the house is the only thing of value I own. He has no idea that his mother is worth more than he could ever imagine. I planned to tell him when he turned 35, a birthday surprise, a gift that would change his life. But things did not go according to plan. Marcus grew up to be a good man, quiet, kind, hardworking. He became an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Burlington. He was never flashy or ambitious. He just wanted a stable life, a nice home, a family of his own. And 5 years ago, he met a woman who seemed to offer him all of that. Her name was Tiffany. I remember the day Marcus brought her home to meet me. She stepped out of his car wearing a designer dress and carrying a handbag that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She looked around at my old house, at the faded wallpaper and the worn furniture, and I saw something flicker across her face. Disappointment, maybe even disgust. She hid it quickly behind a polite smile, but I noticed. Mothers always notice. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself Marcus loved her, and that was enough. I told myself she would warm up to me once she got to know me better. I wanted to believe that love could conquer everything, even first impressions. I was wrong. Marcus and Tiffany got married 3 years ago at a fancy hotel downtown, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers and waiters in white gloves. Tiffany's family chose the venue. They chose the caterer, the florist, the band. They made all the decisions, and they paid for most of it too. I contributed what I could without raising suspicion. A few $1,000s presented as my life savings scraped together for my only son's wedding. Tiffany's mother, Patrice, smiled when she saw the check. But it was not a grateful smile. It was the kind of smile you give a child who hands you a crayon drawing. Polite, condescending, dismissive. During the reception, Patrice cornered me near the bar. She was a tall woman with perfectly styled gray hair and jewelry that clinked when she moved. She leaned in close, her breath smelling of champagne, and whispered in my ear, "Your son is very lucky to be marrying into our family. Tiffany could have had anyone you know, doctors, lawyers, but she chose Marcus. I hope he appreciates what he is getting." I smiled and nodded and said nothing. What could I say? That my net worth was probably triple hers, that I could buy and sell her precious country club membership 10 times over? No. I kept my mouth shut. I watched my son dance with his new bride, and I prayed that I was wrong about her. The first year of their marriage, things seemed okay. Marcus called me every Sunday. He told me about his job, his apartment, his plans for the future. Tiffany was always busy when I visited, always rushing off to meet friends or attend some event. But Marcus seemed happy, so I tried not to worry. Then the calls started getting shorter. By the second year, Marcus only called every other week. He always sounded tired. There was tension in his voice that had not been there before. When I asked if everything was okay, he said yes, just busy with work. But I knew my son. I knew when he was lying. I started visiting less often. It was not by choice. Every time I suggested coming over, Tiffany had an excuse. They were redecorating. She was not feeling well. They had plans with her family. The message was clear, even if no one said it out loud. I was not welcome. One day, about 2 years into the marriage, I decided to surprise them. I baked a batch of my famous cinnamon rolls and drove to their apartment unannounced. When Tiffany opened the door, her face fell for just a second before she recovered. "Oh, Lydia. Hi." She did not invite me in right away. She stood in the doorway, blocking my view of the apartment, her body language screaming that I was intruding. Finally, she stepped aside and let me enter. The apartment was full of people I did not recognize. Tiffany's friends, apparently. Young women in expensive clothes sipping wine and laughing about things I could not understand. Tiffany led me toward the kitchen, but one of her friends stopped us. "Tiffany, who is this?" Tiffany barely glanced at me. "Oh, this is just someone who used to work for Marcus's family when he was young. She helps out sometimes." I stood there frozen, my hands still holding the container of cinnamon rolls. My own daughter-in-law had just told her friends I was the help. Not her mother-in-law, not family. The help. I smiled. I handed over the rolls. I made an excuse about needing to leave, and I cried the entire drive home. But that was not the only time. A few months later, Marcus turned 32. Tiffany threw him a birthday party at their apartment. I was invited, thankfully, though I suspect Marcus insisted. I spent hours knitting him a sweater. Dark blue wool, his favorite color, with a cable knit pattern I had learned from my own grandmother. It was not expensive, but it was made with love. Every stitch held a prayer for my son's happiness. When Marcus opened his gifts, Tiffany went first. She handed him a velvet box containing a luxury watch. Swiss-made, probably cost more than my truck. The room erupted in oohs and ahs. Then Marcus opened my gift. He held up the sweater and his face softened. "Mom, this is beautiful. Thank you." But I saw Tiffany's expression from across the room. She looked at my handmade sweater like it was a dead animal. She whispered something to the friend next to her, and they both smirked. I went to the bathroom and locked the door. I stood there for 5 minutes, gripping the sink, telling myself not to cry. telling myself it did not matter what she thought. But it did matter. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. The final straw came a few weeks later. I was at their apartment again, helping Marcus fix a leaky faucet while Tiffany talked on the phone in the other room. She did not know I could hear her. Or maybe she did not care. "Mom," I know she was saying, "my mother-in-law has nothing. Literally nothing. Just that old shack and some pocket change. She cannot help us at all. It is embarrassing, honestly. Marcus deserves better." I stood there with a wrench in my hand, listening to my daughter-in-law tell her mother that I was worthless, that my son deserved better than having me as his mother. The words cut deeper than any knife. I finished fixing the faucet. I said goodbye to Marcus. I drove home in silence. That night, I sat in my kitchen and made a decision. I would not confront Tiffany. I would not tell Marcus what I heard. I would simply wait. Because I had learned something important over my 58 years. The truth always comes out eventually. And when it did, I wanted to be ready. 6 months before Thanksgiving, Tiffany called with news. She was pregnant. Marcus was going to be a father. I was going to be a grandmother. I cried tears of joy when I heard. A grandchild. A new life to love, to cherish, to spoil with homemade cookies and bedtime stories. For a moment, I forgot all the pain Tiffany had caused me. I forgot the insults, the dismissals, the cruel words. All I could think about was that tiny baby growing inside her. But Tiffany was not calling just to share happy news. She had an agenda. "Lydia," she said, her voice suddenly businesslike, "Marcus and I have been talking. This apartment is too small for a baby. We need a real house, and we were thinking since you live alone in that big old place, maybe you could sell it. Give us the money for a down payment, and then you could move in with us, to help with the baby." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "I appreciate the thought," I said carefully, "but I am not ready to sell the house. It has too many memories." Tiffany's tone shifted, became sharper. "Memories do not pay the bills, Lydia. We need help. Real help. Do not you want what is best for your grandchild?" I told her I would think about it, but my answer was already no. That house was the last piece of Thomas I had left. The walls held echoes of our laughter, our arguments, our whispered conversations late at night. I would not sell it, not for anyone. Tiffany did not take my refusal well. Over the next few weeks, the pressure intensified. It was not just Tiffany anymore. Her mother, Patrice, started calling, her voice dripping with false concern. "Lydia, dear," she would say, "you are not getting any younger. Living alone at your age is dangerous. What if you fall? What if something happens? Would not it be better to be with family?" I politely declined each time. But the calls kept coming. Then her brother Derek got involved. I had met Derek a few times at family gatherings. He was in his mid-30s, perpetually unemployed, always talking about business ventures that never materialized. He called me one afternoon, his voice oozing fake friendliness. "Hey, Lydia, I heard you have some savings set aside. I have got this investment opportunity that could triple your money. Really solid stuff. What do you say?" I said no. He called back the next week with a different pitch. I said no again. The pattern continued. I started keeping a journal. Every phone call, every manipulative comment, every attempt to extract money from the old widow they thought had nothing. I did not know why I was documenting it all. Maybe I just needed to see it written down, to prove to myself that I was not imagining things. Marcus called me one night. His voice sounded exhausted, worn thin by something I could not see. "Mom," he said, "can we talk?" "Of course, sweetheart. What is wrong?" He sighed. "It is Tiffany. She is upset about the house thing. She says you do not want to be part of our lives. She says you are being selfish." My heart broke a little, not because of what Tiffany said, but because my son was caught in the middle, being pulled apart by loyalties he never asked for. "Marcus," I said gently, "do you want me to sell the house?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know, Mom. I just want everyone to get along. Do you think I am being selfish?" Another pause. "No. I know how much that house means to you. I just wish things were easier." I wanted to tell him everything right then. About the bakeries, about the money, about the $5 million sitting in accounts he had never seen. But something held me back. Fear, maybe, or stubbornness, or the desperate hope that somehow things would work themselves out without me having to reveal my secret. "They will get easier," I told him. "Give it time." But time was running out. Fall arrived in Vermont like a slow exhale. The leaves turned colors one tree at a time until the whole countryside looked like it was on fire. I spent my days in the garden harvesting the last of the tomatoes, preparing the beds for winter. At night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and watched the stars appear. I thought about Thomas. I thought about all the plans we had made that would never come true. We were supposed to travel after retirement, see the Grand Canyon, visit Paris, grow old together on this creaky porch, holding hands and watching the seasons change. Now, I was alone. My son was slipping away. My daughter-in-law despised me, and I was too proud or too scared to do anything about it. One evening I pulled out an old photo album from the closet, pictures of Marcus as a baby, his first steps, his kindergarten graduation, Thomas and I at our wedding, young and hopeful and completely unaware of what life had in store. "If you were here," I whispered to the empty room, "what would you tell me to do?" I could almost hear his voice. "Lydia, you know your own worth. Do not let anyone make you forget that." He was right. He was always right. But knowing something and believing it are two different things. And as Thanksgiving approached, I found myself dreading the holiday I used to love. Thanksgiving morning dawned cold and gray. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, and my breath made little clouds as I walked to the mailbox. I had agreed to attend dinner at Marcus and Tiffany's apartment. I did not want to go. Every instinct told me to stay home to fake an illness, to avoid whatever drama was waiting for me. But I could not abandon my son, not on a holiday meant for family. I spent the morning baking, my famous apple pie using the recipe that had launched an empire no one knew about. The familiar rhythm of measuring and mixing calmed my nerves, rolling out the dough, arranging the apple slices in perfect concentric circles, weaving the lattice crust with fingers that remembered every motion. When the pie came out of the oven, golden and fragrant, I allowed myself a small smile. Whatever happened today, at least I would bring something beautiful to the table. I dressed simply, dark slacks, a burgundy blouse, pearl earrings that Thomas had given me for our 20th anniversary. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had survived more than most people knew, a woman who had built something from nothing, a woman who deserved respect. I hoped I would get it. I feared I would not. The drive to Burlington took about 45 minutes. I parked my old truck in the apartment complex lot between a Mercedes and a BMW. It looked out of place, just like me. I grabbed the pie and headed inside. Tiffany opened the door. She was showing now her belly round beneath a cream-colored sweater. She did not smile when she saw me. "Oh, you are here. Happy Thanksgiving to you too," I thought. But I just smiled and stepped inside. The apartment was full of people. Patrice sat on the couch, her new boyfriend beside her, a man I had never met whose name I never caught. Derek lounged in an armchair scrolling through his phone, and Marcus stood in the kitchen looking uncomfortable in a way that made my heart ache. "Mom." He crossed the room to hug me. "I am glad you came." "I would not miss it," I said. "I brought pie." Tiffany took the pie from my hands without a thank you and disappeared into the kitchen. I found a seat in the corner and tried to make myself invisible. Dinner was tense from the start. The turkey was dry. The conversation was forced. Patrice dominated most of the talking, bragging about a recent trip to Hawaii, showing off photos on her phone to anyone who would look. "Lydia," she said eventually, turning to me with that condescending smile I had grown to hate, "do you travel much?" "Not recently," I said. Tiffany snorted. "Obviously. Traveling costs money." I let the comment slide. I had become an expert at letting things slide. The meal dragged on. Every few minutes someone would make a subtle dig at my expense. Derek asked what I did before I retired, and when I said I worked in the food industry, he laughed and said something about fast food jobs being underappreciated. Patrice remarked that it must be nice to live simply without the stress of maintaining a real home. Tiffany rolled her eyes every time I spoke. Marcus sat beside me, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on his plate. He knew what was happening. He just did not know how to stop it. By the time dessert was served, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, ready to go home and forget this day ever happened. But Tiffany was not done yet. She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. The room fell silent. She looked directly at me, and there was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Hatred. Pure, undisguised hatred. "I cannot do this anymore," she said. "I cannot sit here and pretend everything is fine." Marcus reached for her arm. "Tiffany, please." "No." She shook him off. "Everyone needs to hear this, especially her." She pointed at me. My heart started pounding. "Do you know what it is like?" She continued, her voice rising, "to be married to someone whose mother contributes nothing. Absolutely nothing. We are about to have a baby. We need help, real help, not homemade pies and hand-knitted sweaters. Money, support. But what do we get from you?" "Nothing," Tiffany Marcus said again, his voice strained. She ignored him. "Get a job and stop being a leech," she shouted at me. "Stop expecting us to take care of you. Stop being a burden on this family. You are pathetic. Do you hear me?" Pathetic? The room was completely silent. Patrice looked uncomfortable. Derek had finally put down his phone. Marcus's face had gone white. And me. I sat there for a moment, letting her words wash over me. Leech, burden, pathetic. The same words I had feared all my life. The same words I had worked so hard to prove wrong. And then something unexpected happened. I laughed. Not a nervous giggle, not a polite chuckle, a real genuine from the belly laugh. The kind of laugh that takes over your whole body and refuses to stop. Tiffany stared at me like I had lost my mind. "What is so funny?" I wiped my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea." I stood up. My legs felt steady. My hands were not shaking. For the first time in years, I felt completely calm. "Do you know Golden Harvest Bakery?" I asked her. "The chain with 12 locations across New England. The one you love to brag about when you buy birthday cakes for your friends?" Tiffany blinked. "What does that have to do with anything? I own it," I said simply. "All of it. My net worth is $5 million. That old house you want me to sell? It is worth $800,000. The truck I drive, I choose to drive it because I like it." The color drained from Tiffany's face. Marcus's jaw dropped. I turned to my son. "Sweetheart, I was planning to tell you on your 35th birthday. I wanted it to be a surprise, but I suppose today works too." Then I looked back at Tiffany. I smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to prove. "And this apartment," I continued, "I bought it for Marcus 3 years ago as a wedding gift. My name is still on the deed. So when you tell me to get a job and stop being a leech, I suggest you check your facts first. And sweetheart, you might want to start looking for a new place to live." I picked up my purse. I walked to the door. I did not look back to see their faces. I did not need to. I had spent 3 years being underestimated, insulted, dismissed. And in 30 seconds I had turned everything upside down. The November air hit my face as I stepped outside, cold and clean and free. I walked to my truck, climbed inside, and sat there for a moment. My hands were trembling now, the adrenaline finally catching up with me. Then I started to laugh again, softer this time, the laugh of someone who had finally said enough. I was halfway home when my phone started buzzing. Marcus, Tiffany, Patrice, Derek. One call after another lighting up my screen like a switchboard gone haywire. I let them all go to voicemail. Whatever they had to say could wait. I needed silence. I needed space to process what had just happened. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. I did not read any of them. Instead, I walked into my house, locked the door behind me, and poured myself a glass of wine. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel lonely, but now felt like peace. I sat in Thomas's old armchair, the one by the window that looked out over the garden, and let the silence settle around me like a blanket. I had done it. After 3 years of biting my tongue, swallowing my pride, and pretending not to notice every slight and insult, I had finally spoken up. And it felt good. Terrifying, but good. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked at it. A text from Marcus. "Mom, please call me. I need to talk to you." I typed back a simple response. "Tomorrow. I need tonight to myself." Then I turned off my phone and finished my wine. The next morning, I woke up to a gray sky and the smell of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. I made myself coffee toast and eggs. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, giving myself time before facing whatever came next. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded with notifications. But I scrolled past most of them looking for one name in particular. Marcus had sent 12 messages. "Mom, I am so sorry. I had no idea about any of this. Why did not you tell me, please, I need to see you?" The last one was from 2 in the morning. "I love you, Mom, no matter what." My eyes stung. I blinked back tears and set the phone down. My son still loved me. Whatever else happened, that was what mattered most. I decided to deal with the others first. The vultures who had circled me for months thinking I was easy prey. Tiffany had sent a flood of messages, each one more desperate than the last. The first few were angry. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. How could you keep something like that secret?" But as the night went on, her tone changed. "Lydia, I am so sorry. I was wrong about you. Please, can we talk? I did not mean those things I said. Mom, please forgive me. I was stressed and pregnant and I took it out on you." She called me Mom. She had never called me Mom before. I did not respond. Patrice had also sent messages, her tune completely different from the woman who had spent months pressuring me to sell my house. "Dear Lydia, I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding. I have always had the deepest respect for you. Please call me when you have a chance. We should clear the air." I almost laughed. Clear the air, as if years of condescension could be wiped away with a few polite words now that she knew I was rich. Derek's messages were the most predictable. Suddenly, he was my biggest fan. He mentioned investment opportunities. He offered to manage my portfolio. He suggested we grab coffee sometime to discuss financial planning. Delete, delete, delete. I spent the morning in my garden pulling weeds that did not really need pulling, just to have something to do with my hands. The physical work helped me think, helped me figure out what I wanted to happen next. Around noon, I called Samuel, my lawyer. "I need to make some changes," I told him, "to the apartment deed, and I want to set up a trust fund for my future grandchild." He listened carefully as I explained what I wanted. The apartment would be transferred entirely to Marcus's name, but structured in a way that protected it as his separate property. If his marriage ended, Tiffany would not be entitled to any of it. The trust fund would be managed independently, with distributions controlled by strict guidelines. "You are being very careful," Samuel observed. "I have learned to be," I said. That evening, Marcus came to see me. He arrived alone, looking like he had not slept in days. His eyes were red, his clothes were wrinkled. He stood on my porch like a stranger, asking permission to enter. "Come in," I said. I made soup. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had fed him cereal as a child, helped him with homework, as a teenager, celebrated his college acceptance as a young man. The same table where Thomas and I had shared thousands of meals before his chair became empty. Marcus did not touch his soup. He just stared at the bowl like it held answers he could not find. "Why did not you tell me?" he finally asked. I sighed, because I wanted to know who loved me for me, not for my money, not for what I could give them. I wanted to see people's true faces. He looked up. "And Tiffany, did you see her true face?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, I saw it a long time ago. I just hoped I was wrong." His shoulders slumped. "What am I supposed to do now?" "That is not for me to decide," I said gently. "She is your wife. You need to figure out if this marriage is what you want. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I love you more than anything in this world. I always have, but I cannot pretend that the way she treated me is okay. And I will not pretend that everything is fine now just because she knows I have money." He was quiet for a long time. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "I am sorry, Mom. I should have stood up for you. I should have seen what was happening. You were trying to keep the peace. I understand. But still," he shook his head, "I should have done better." We sat there together as the soup grew cold, mother and son connected by something deeper than words. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season began to fall. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Tiffany requested a meeting. She wanted to come to my house and apologize in person. Part of me wanted to refuse. Part of me was curious to see what she would say now that the power dynamic had shifted. I agreed. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon, her pregnant belly even larger than the last time I saw her. She moved awkwardly, one hand supporting her back, the other clutching her purse like a lifeline. When I opened the door, she did not meet my eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly. I stepped aside to let her in. "Would you like some tea?" She nodded and followed me to the kitchen. I noticed her looking around at the house with new eyes. The antique furniture she had once dismissed as old junk, the handmade quilts she had mocked as shabby, the framed photographs of Thomas and Marcus and me that lined the hallway. She was seeing it differently now, or maybe she was just pretending to. I poured 2 cups of tea and we sat across from each other at the table, the same table where I had sat with Marcus just days before. Tiffany took a deep breath. "I do not even know where to start." I waited. "I have been awful to you," she continued. "I know that. I looked down on you because I thought you had nothing. I thought Marcus married beneath his potential. I thought you were a burden we would have to carry." She paused, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. "I was wrong. About everything. I judged you by your house and your car and your clothes, and I missed who you really were. A woman who built an empire from nothing. A woman who loves her son more than anything. A woman who deserved so much better than how I treated her." I sipped my tea. "Why did you treat me that way?" Her jaw tightened. "I grew up thinking money was the only thing that mattered. My mother always told me to marry rich, to surround myself with successful people, to never let anyone drag me down. When I met Marcus and saw where he came from, I thought his family was beneath mine. I thought you would hold him back." She finally met my eyes. "I was a snob, a cruel, shallow snob, and I am sorry." I set down my cup. "Tiffany, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you saying these things, but I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me." She nodded. "Are you sorry because you realized you were wrong? Or are you sorry because you found out I am rich?" She flinched like I had slapped her. "That is fair. I deserve that question." I waited for her answer. "I do not know," she admitted finally. "Both maybe. I have been up every night since Thanksgiving thinking about this, and I genuinely do not know how to separate the two. All I know is that I was wrong about you, and I want to try to make it right." It was not the answer I wanted, but it was an honest answer, and that counted for something. I leaned back in my chair. "I am not going to throw you out of Marcus's life. You are carrying my grandchild, and I would never do anything to hurt that baby. But you need to understand something. My trust has been broken. It will take time to rebuild, maybe a lot of time, and pretty words are not enough. I need to see changed behavior, real change, not performance." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I understand." "I hope you do," I said, "because this is your one chance. If you ever treat me like that again, there will not be a conversation. There will just be consequences." She left an hour later. I watched her walk to her car, shoulders hunched against the cold. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel vindicated. I just felt tired. And maybe underneath all that tiredness, a tiny spark of hope that things could eventually be different. The weeks that followed were a strange kind of quiet. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of something new. Boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries that everyone understood. I met with Samuel to finalize the legal arrangements. The apartment was transferred to Marcus's name with protections in place. The trust fund for my grandchild was established with careful guidelines about how and when distributions could be made. I was not trying to punish anyone, I was trying to protect what mattered. Marcus called me more often now, sometimes just to chat about nothing, sometimes to update me on the pregnancy, sometimes to ask for advice about his marriage, his career, his life. We talked more in those few weeks than we had in years. "I do not know what to do about Tiffany," he admitted one night. "She is trying. She really is. But I do not know if I can forget what happened." "You do not have to forget," I told him. "Forgetting is not the same as forgiving. You can remember what happened and still choose to move forward. The question is whether you want to move forward with her." He was silent for a long time. "I keep thinking about what you said, about seeing people's true faces. What if her true face is the one I saw at Thanksgiving?" "Maybe it is," I said. "Or maybe her true face is the one she is showing now, trying to be better." People are complicated, Marcus. They can be cruel and kind, selfish and generous all at the same time. You have to decide which parts you can live with." He sighed. "When did you get so wise?" I laughed softly. "I had a good teacher. Your father never let me get away with anything. He always pushed me to be better, to think deeper, to love harder. I miss him every day." Marcus's voice grew thick. "I miss him too." We talked for another hour that night, about Thomas, about the bakery, about all the things I had kept hidden for so long. It felt good to finally share them with my son, like laying down a burden I had carried alone for too long. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my own life. I joined a volunteer group at the local community center teaching baking to kids from underprivileged families. Their faces when they pulled their first cookies from the oven reminded me why I started this whole journey in the first place. The joy of creating something with your own hands, the magic of sharing that creation with others. I reconnected with my brother Walter. We planned a trip together for the spring. Arizona maybe, or New Mexico. Somewhere warm and sunny where we could hike during the day and watch the stars at night. Thomas and I had always talked about taking that trip. Now I would take it without him, but carrying his memory with me. I made new friends at the community center, women my age who did not know or care about my bank account. We met for coffee on Wednesday mornings and complained about our joints and laughed at jokes that only made sense to people who had lived a while. They liked me for me, and I liked them right back. Life was not perfect. It never is. But it was good, better than it had been in years. One evening I drove out to the original Golden Harvest location, the one Thomas and I had opened 25 years ago. It had been renovated twice since then, modernized and expanded, but some things remained the same. The same bell above the door that jingled when customers walked in. The same smell of butter and cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. The same warmth that had made people fall in love with the place from day one. I stood outside for a while watching through the window as Grace directed the evening staff. She saw me and waved. I waved back. "Thomas," I whispered into the cold night air. "I think I finally found my way." The stars did not answer, but I felt him anyway, in the warmth of my coat, in the smell of baking bread, in the quiet certainty that I had done the right thing. Emma was born on a Tuesday in late January, 7 pounds 4 ounces, 10 fingers and 10 toes, a tuft of dark hair that stuck up no matter how much you smoothed it down. She had Marcus's eyes and Thomas's chin and a cry that could shatter glass. I was at the hospital within the hour. Marcus met me in the hallway looking exhausted and terrified and happier than I had ever seen him. "She is beautiful, Mom. She is so beautiful." "I know," I said, hugging him tight. "I know." Tiffany was in the recovery room propped up against pillows, the baby nestled in her arms. When I walked in, she looked up at me with an expression I could not quite read. Fear, hope, something in between. "Would you like to hold her?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Tiffany placed the baby in my arms, and suddenly nothing else mattered. Not the arguments, not the insults, not the years of pain, just this tiny, perfect human who had no idea what she had been born into. "Hello, Emma," I whispered. "I am your grandmother, and I am going to love you so much." She yawned and wrinkled her nose and went right back to sleep. I laughed through my tears. In the months that followed, I watched Tiffany carefully. I had meant what I said about needing to see changed behavior, and slowly, tentatively, I began to see it. She invited me to visit without prompting. She asked for my advice about feeding schedules and sleep training. She listened when I talked about what Marcus had been like as a baby. She never rolled her eyes or made snide comments or whispered to her mother about me. It was not a transformation overnight. There were still awkward moments, still times when old habits surfaced and had to be checked. But there was effort, real, consistent effort, and that mattered. I kept my boundaries in place. I did not loan money to anyone in her family. I did not pretend the past had not happened. But I also did not hold grudges. I did not bring up old wounds just to make a point. I tried to move forward while remembering where I had been. Marcus and Tiffany went to couples counseling. He told me about it one afternoon while Emma napped in my arms. "We are working on communication," he said. "On trust. It is hard, but I think it is helping. I am proud of you," I told him. "Both of you." And I meant it. whatever Tiffany had been before she was trying to become something better. I did not know if their marriage would last, but I knew that growth was possible, change was possible, even for people who had disappointed us most. 1 year after that Thanksgiving dinner, I found myself sitting on my porch again. The maples had turned gold and red once more. The air smelled of wood smoke and approaching winter. Emma was inside playing on a blanket while Marcus and Tiffany prepared dinner in my kitchen. My kitchen. My house. The home I had refused to sell no matter how much pressure they had put on me. I thought about everything that had happened. The insults, the revelation, the rebuilding, the tiny granddaughter who called me Nana even though she could barely talk. I thought about Thomas, about what he would say if he could see us now. You did good, Lydia. You held your ground, and look what you got because of it. I smiled at the empty chair beside me, the one where he used to sit on evenings just like this. Yeah, I whispered. I think I did okay. The door opened behind me. Emma came toddling out, her chubby legs still unsteady, her face split into a grin. Nana, she said, reaching for me. Nana. I scooped her up and held her close. Inside, I could hear Marcus laughing at something Tiffany said. The smell of roasting turkey drifted through the open door. I did not know what the future held. I did not know if Tiffany would keep changing, if Marcus would stay happy, if Emma would grow up knowing how much she was loved. I could not control any of that, but I could control this moment, this perfect, imperfect, beautiful moment. If you are watching this and someone has ever made you feel worthless, I want you to know something. Your value does not depend on what others think of you. It does not depend on your bank account or your job title or the car you drive. It depends on who you are inside, on the love you give, on the strength you find when everything seems lost. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. Sometimes you have to say enough is enough. Sometimes you have to laugh in the face of someone who tries to tear you down. Not because you want revenge, but because you finally know your own worth. So tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone who regretted it later? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who did not respect you? I want to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. And while you are there, hit that like button if this story touched you in some way. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter what anyone says, you are not a leech. You are not a burden. You are not pathetic. You are enough, exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.